and justice for all.
Okay, tonight we have the consultants before us that we hired a while back. Heather, you want to introduce the gentlemen sitting here?
Well, I'll let them make their own introductions.
Bill Connors, I'm the president of Risk Management Advisors, the company that was retained to do the assessment of the police department, the attendant issues.
Kevin Jones, Risk Management Advisors. I'm a consultant to the company.
Ready? So, these gentlemen will start with their...
Yes, do you want to start with just like a summary of your findings?
Sure. We were retained, excuse me, we were retained at the end of January to do an assessment of the police department that would look at some of the personnel dynamics that were involved. The methodology involved a interview of all of the full-time police officers, the part-time police officers, the selectmen, the town administrator, the administrative assistant to the town administrator, and any other persons that we felt throughout the course of those interviews that might have information that was pertinent to the assessment. In general, what we found was that there were problems in terms of interpersonal dynamics. If it's okay with you, I can read some notes from the summary that I had brought with me.
Sure.
That might clarify, help a little bit more. To go over the logistics, first of all, as I said, the methodology that we used provided that any information that we determined throughout the interviews would be aggregated as generalized information. There'd be no personal attribution that, you know, Tom Smith said X or Mary Brown said Y. It's a typical process to use to gain trust in the interview process and to allow people to speak as freely as possible in a situation like this. We also talked about in the engagement phase about producing a generic report that would talk about the issues that we found, provide recommendations at the end of it, and give an overall summary. The bottom line is that the findings in the report that we will provide to you in effect put it was a dynamic attention graph so that it would show three different verticals, if you will. Interviews with the patrol force, interviews with management, and management is defined as the chief of police, the select board, the town administrator, and then our observations about how those dynamics work. At the end of that, the summary of findings that we came up with in bullet point fashion our summary of findings revealed that there were significant problems that exist within the police department, and it's apparent that they've existed for the past several years. What we found as being the root cause is obviously a complex issue, and it involves both intentional and unintentional failures on a number of different levels. Based solely on the interview process, and it was not an in-depth review of operational procedures, which are reserved for whomever you may retain in ongoing phases. We feel the following variables have contributed to what we have termed the toxic environment within the police department. Those being long-standing conflict and competitiveness between members of the department, two in particular, a failure to correct relatively minor issues in a timely fashion, allowing minor issues to take on a false sense of importance, a union that in a number of cases offers and continues to offer subjective opinions as fact, a failure to follow a clearly defined disciplinary process in a timely fashion, a failure to follow a chain of command at a number of different levels, discussions and actions that amount to end runs on the part of the patrol force and management, a patrol force that is too angry and so angry and committed to its current position that meaningful negotiation currently is all but impossible, management that has tried to appease all parties but in doing so has failed to exhibit the strong leadership that the department currently demands, unsourced information, statements, and reports that are unable to be attributed to any specific individual, yet in some cases they're accepted as fact and acted upon by management, specific complaints being provided and investigated, and management meeting with individual offices and other town employees in unofficial meetings. So those were the summaries. The position is that sustainable corrective actions are highly unlikely, if not impossible, and without a change in leadership and an adjustment to current procedures utilized within the town's management structure and the police department. If we move forward to our recommendations, the bottom line is that we are, the two recommendations that we have are the two options that come out of the recommendations. The first feeling that we have an opinion is that the current chief cannot continue. The second recommendation would be that the town of Barry should engage in an immediate nationwide search for a new chief. Formal detailed job description, including specific desired skill sets and characteristics, should be developed by the town administrator and publicized as part of the search. The town should be prepared to establish a review board capable of interviewing and assessing successful candidates. We do have the thought that there are options that other small and large towns have adopted, and that is a commissioner of public safety. We're not sure that it would be appropriate in this case, but we'd be glad to talk about that as a follow-on. And that basically, in a nutshell, is where we are. There's the result of our interview process and our findings.
Do you have anything to add, Kevin? Okay.
Pretty much said what Bill just talked about.
Does the board have any questions or comments?
It's not the result I was looking for. However, the result's the result.
Well, I think in response to that, not that it demands one,
Right.
but the response would be that our engagement was clear and direct
Yeah,
at the beginning, that we have no dog in this fight.
exactly.
We have-
Correct.
Management-wise, we have a collective, probably 125 years of police experience,
Mhm.
from small 30-man departments. I worked for a 300-man department. Kevin worked for a 2,500-man department. But the overriding promise that we made to you and the overriding mandate that the consultant has in a situation such as this is the chips fall where the chips fall.
Right. I wasn't faulting the
Oh,
methodology.
I did not take that as-
Yeah, I was just saying, you know.
Certainly, I mean, look, we understand small towns.
Right.
You know, we're all friends, we all want to do the right thing. We all want to get along, we all want to make problems better. Sometimes that works. Our experience is that it rarely works.
Mhm.
Typically, you wind up with this result. Everybody wants to look at the problem. But I think the single most important topic, single most important point, and I don't want to key on this because people will take this phrase and misunderstand it, but it is a toxic environment currently.
Right.
Sustainable change cannot be developed and maintained under the current structure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I was just going to add, Rich, okay? I was just going to add that this has probably been the most difficult decision that's been made. And it's just very, very hard to look at it, and that's why I know I felt that by having a third party come in, they would be unbiased,
Correct.
didn't know any of the players, didn't know anyone from this area, and just, would sit there from the outside looking in and look at all of the people involved in it, to just looking at all the people involved, and just offered to the town of Barry, what they thought, would be best for the town of Barry, which is what I believe all of us are doing. We're looking out for what is best for the town of Barry, as hard it is, and how difficult it is, and how awful it is. That's what we're looking at, is what is best for the town of Barry.
And I want to I'll go along with pretty much everything that Kathy said. It's very difficult in a small town where everybody knows everybody, worked together for years. But when you tried working on some of these problems, we've had several meetings over the last, I don't know how many years. And I think it was Kathy who came up with the idea of hiring this firm, because we seem to be gaining nowhere earlier. It seems like we would have a meeting and it didn't seem to be gaining any ground. And that, in fact, it seems to be getting worse. And as a selectman, and Kathy states, we have friends and we all try to get along, but also as a selectman, we have to look at what's best for the town, and especially moving forward. So I think that's one of the pluses of having this independent firm come forth and do this project for us, to give us their recommendations. How about you, have any comments or questions for these guys?
I have nothing to add from what Bill said, but in agreement. This has been a very difficult time for our office, the board, the police department in general, and I want the public to know that as well.
All right. So,
Am I able to say something?
what's that?
Am I able to say something?
We're gonna kind of keep the comments kind of brief. If you want to do something quick, one question.
Is this just personality issues, or do you, as the Board of Selectmen, his bosses have issues with how he's been? I worked over there, and I'm just dumbfounded by this whole thing. I don't see issues other than personality conflicts. So, is there something that he's not doing? He's not keeping his budget in line, or is there things like that, or is it just personalities?
I don't think it's personality. I think that's why we hired this firm, Amy, to come in so people wouldn't say it was a personality conflict with
That's
one
what
of
it
the
is, it's
board
just
members,
personalities?
or several of the members, or what. That's
It's
why.
just personalities.
Yeah.
He's doing a good job as police chief, but it's just personalities that.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
That's what I'm asking.
No, that's not my take on it. I don't know how the other board members feel. I don't think it's
Sorry, but isn't that what
personality.
exactly you said?
Oh, you gotta wait your turn, please.
Sorry, I
You
got hand
recognize?
up.
Well,
Yes, you're around.
one at a time. You guys have any comments or questions for that?
There's no personality issues between the board and Eric.
No, it sounds like it's more, the officers.
It is.
Yeah, so, but I'm asking, have you guys, as his, supervisors, as his bosses, have had issues with how he's been running his department? Or if not, then it seems like it's just more personality issues with the guys.
Like the gentleman said, Amy, basically it's gotten to the point where if Eric puts his pen on the table like this instead of like that, there's a problem. And this is built up over time to where no matter what the situation is, the officers take offense at it. It comes back on Eric. My own feeling, this is strictly me, this is not the board or anybody else. I like Eric. A lot of people like Eric. If anything, he may have been too lax with some of the discipline that should have been meted out to the officers. That's my feeling. I don't know what the chief feels. And so, from that point, it grew and grew and grew.
So there's not a chance of, having some consultation with him or some, training or whatever to have him totally out of his job.
I agree.
Sucks.
I agree with you. I mean, it's,
Yeah, the townspeople love him.
yes, they do, and rightfully so. But like Richie said, this is one of the decisions that you have to make and you don't want to make, And I hold nothing but esteem for the gentleman, But that's the point we find ourselves in now. When this originally came up for a vote, my original thought process was, and that's why I made the motion to extend his contract, was give him a year, see if you can get it straightened out. If you can't, well, fine, we tried, the results of the finding are that, and this was discussed a little bit before, when we had the initial consultation, after they had done some of their wrap-up work, was he could stay for 6 months, he could stay for a year, he could stay for 5 years, and the situation will become no better for him. That's all I can say. And I hate to say that. I don't want to say it, but that's the situation and the spot we find ourselves in.
Mr. Hope?
If I could offer up a different perspective of this, what I'm hearing is that the board doesn't have a personality conflict with the chief. The board doesn't find that the chief has done anything perhaps other than be too lenient on his employees. What I hear from the consultants, and I appreciate them not having a dog in the fight, so they can be completely objective about coming in and looking and speaking with everybody. But what I hear from them is that it's not particularly a failure of him to do his job appropriately, as anybody in this town can see. He's done a good job of bringing money in for public safety. He's done a good job. He's done a phenomenal job in this town. Speaking to one of your points, and hopefully the most important point, is doing what's best for this town. What I'm hearing from the gentleman is that primarily this is a personality issue between the chief and some of the people who work for him. And that has gotten to the point where, as you said, Mr. Erickson, doesn't matter what way he puts his pen, it ticks them off.
Correct.
For 11 years, I worked for a man I couldn't stand. I hated his guts. I couldn't stand to look at him, but I had a choice. I work for this man because this is the job I want to do, or I find somewhere else to go. And ultimately, I made the choice for myself to find somewhere else to go.
Right.
He's the person in charge. He did what he needed to do, put himself in that position. And as a subordinate to that person, it was my responsibility either to live up to his expectations or to move on. The issues at hand here for this town are who is running our police department, who is public safety, keeping us safe. I hazard to guess there isn't a person that you're going to find in a nationwide search that knows this town like our chief does, who's able to interact with the children in this town and provide an environment of community policing like anybody else being able to walk into this town as a stranger. Being able to walk into Ruggles Lane or the high school and be welcomed by the children who are now seeing police as an ally rather than somebody immediately of, oh crap, there's the cops, is not something that should be taken lightly.
And we don't.
We don't. I can appreciate that. But what you're saying and what you're telling everybody is that you're making a decision based on what's best for the town. What I'm hearing, and I don't want to speak for the people around me, but what I'm hearing is what's being done is the best for those people working for him, and not necessarily for the town. We all have a choice to work for someone we like or move on.
Correct.
And I would suggest that the position of the chief of police is an important one enough to where if the people don't like who work for him, don't like how he runs the business, runs the department, then they find somewhere else to go. Because there's nobody in this town
There's nobody in this state who knows and loves his town like our current chief does, and you will not be able to find someone to replace them.
Thank
So I appreciate
Thank you.
what he said,
Yep.
but I wanted to offer up another side to the.
Okay, thank you. Bill, do you
Can
have
I-
anything on that part of the,
I was just gonna add a little something to what he said, or you can go with Bill and then I'll go afterwards.
okay, he seems to think that it's all personnel matters. Do you care to comment on that, or?
Sure. It is, to a large degree, there are personnel issues, conflicts. I can tell you with certainty that small departments, large departments, private businesses, public safety, public entities, regardless, we all have conflicts with people that we work with.
Everybody.
It's a fact of life. One of the things you actually, excuse me, you actually made the case at part of our time is the current chief is a great guy. That's a fact, it's not disputed. He's too nice a guy. I can tell you, and anybody that's in law enforcement knows, we all run into chiefs or supervisors, that you go into his or her office, you make a complaint, it's noted, or you don't like the way they place their pen, as the example was noted, it's, I'm the chief. You're not getting paid to come and complain, you're getting paid to go out and do your job on the street. Go do your job. If it's a meaningful complaint, we'll take it up. That hasn't happened in this case. And as we pointed out in the report, small matters have been allowed to grow into large matters. One of our recommendations is not the strong chief that was voted on in terms of budget and control of the department, a strong chief in terms of, I'm the boss, you're the patrolman, or you're the sergeant, or you're the lieutenant, or you're the captain, or whomever. It's up to you to do the job. There will be a downside to that. That will be great for 6 months, which is why we think you need to go outside the town. That will be great for 6 months, and then it will be just the opposite. Man, this guy is a pain in the neck. He's relentless, or she. For the sake of the discussion, we'll use the male gender, okay? But the bottom line is, the rank and file, whether it be an 8-man department or an 8,000-man department, are prone to complaining. The biggest problem the small departments face is, especially in a town like Barry, where there's not a lot going on. I worked north of Boston in the city, a large department, all the same problems that Boston has, but in a geographically compressed area. You are so busy, you don't have time to worry about what the chief, or the captain, or the lieutenant is doing. You only have time to worry about going out and getting the job done. So, I don't know if that helps answer your question about what we're saying or not saying, but the bottom line is you have a dynamic within the department with both sides. You have a really nice guy, not to say that everybody isn't nice, you have a really nice guy that wants to be supportive of the town, the kids, the department, even though the guys in the department may not see it, wants to be supportive of everybody, and he's getting slammed. He cannot lead the department any longer. That's the bottom line. He's lost control, he's lost the command leadership that the chief needs. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's the fact.
Kathy, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, and I was just going to, that's part of what I was going to say. That, you know, for several years, we know we've had some problems in trying to work through the problems, but the problems were not worked out. The problems, you know, were not being taken care of. The minor issues turned into major issues, and it just was not dealt with. And the word appease is correct, that what was happening was that Eric, because he is such a nice human being, he was trying to appease things instead of being the manager and leader, you know, of this very small group of police officers, and it is very tough. You know, it's sometimes easier to run a 35-man department instead of, you know, a 7 or 8-man department because of that. Because when they're very, very small, it's a very different dynamics. It's a totally different dynamics. And does he I see him everywhere. He's at all the Q-Drug meetings that I go to. He's at the high school, he's at Ruggles Lane, he's at the Berry Health Center. You know, he's at the EMS. He is everywhere. He lives in town. He's a part of it. But as the police chief, you have to manage your people. And as I say, this has been several years in the making, and those issues have not been resolved and have only gotten worse. And it's allowed minor issues to become major issues because of this. That's all I have to say.
May I add one other point?
Sure.
To help put it all, the whole issue in perspective, and most people on larger, any department, size doesn't matter, but my experience has been that when you are in your probationary period, the first year, I was told day one, that after I got out of the academy, shut up, I was told, remember kid, pleasant and civil to all, friends with none. And unfortunately, the chief is friends with everybody, and that creates a potential for problems. You have to stay arm's length back. It is very, once you become friends and know everybody, it becomes difficult to enforce rules. And it becomes difficult to enforce discipline. So, you know, again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the facts speak for themselves.
Okay. Eric, do you have anything you'd like to add to this or comment on it?
Not right now, no.
Okay. Dennis?
I'd like to ask, what boards on the town was contacted with questions about the chief? Did you contact any of the planning boards?
No.
Nobody? Just the police department?
Just what he
itself?
said.
I
Police,
didn't hear that.
oh, I'm sorry,
That's why
Dennis.
I'm asking.
Police officers, the police chief, town administrator, secretary to the administrator, and the board of selectmen.
Secretary to Eric.
And Eric's secretary.
Was the Civilian Law Enforcement Review Board contacted?
No.
We asked about that, no.
You asked about it,
Yep.
and what?
Well, one of them is in a nursing home, the other one is in
And
Florida.
I'm one right here.
Yeah. Well, there you go. No, we did not.
Right.
So,
Did you consider doing a public poll with the residents of Barry?
You're not gonna like my answer, sir. A, no, we didn't consider it. The reason we didn't consider it is because it's typically a bad idea.
This is your profession, that's why I'm
Right.
asking you.
The, if I'm not mistaken, are there not 5 members mandated to be on the civilian review board?
yes. Yeah.
And there's one in the nursing home, there's one in Florida, and the other 30. So, in effect,
We
one,
can't meet,
I'm sorry?
we can't meet.
Exactly.
It's been a defunct group for years.
Right,
We
yeah.
were gonna take it off the books a year ago, we talked about taking it off the books
Well,
just because.
in
Yeah.
fairness to all, though, one of the things that we address is that the public, there should be a public, members of the public that are on some sort of a review board. So, but it needs to be viable, it needs to be a real board.
Well, it was a real board at one point, and I don't know what happened to it. It's kind of like the personnel board fell by its side. There's been several boards in this town that have fallen by the wayside.
Well, I don't mean to be rude, but that's not germane to what we were engaged for.
I'm just saying that.
Okay?
Yeah.
You ready? Anything else? What's the board's pleasure now?
Do we take a vote?
Sure,
What do we do next? Do we take a vote about what we want to do,
correct.
you know, and do it that way?
A motion first, Kathy.
Okay, I make a motion then to go with what the outside consultation said and that the,
Sorry, if you do it, if you
Go ahead.
affirm.
to
Yeah.
affirm what the outside consultation
No,
firm.
no.
No? Go ahead.
To affirm the original vote taken on the police chief's
Oh, I see.
contract renewal.
Okay, okay.
So do we need to make the motion to revisit that first vote, huh?
No, you don't.
No.
If you're gonna take a vote, it would be to affirm that initial position because in that initial vote,
Yes.
you said you
we
would
looked at it
possibly
again.
revisit it.
Okay.
Correct.
So-
All right. Make a motion then that we affirm our initial position concerning the police chief.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
So it's a unanimous decision by the board. Well, at this time, I'd like to thank you guys for coming to help out our town in a pretty horrible situation we were put into. Not horrible by the means of any actions of one person, but on my part, horrible by sitting on this side of the table, having to deal with what we're dealing with tonight. Did it make our decision any easier? Not really. Did it make my decision that I think we're doing the right thing? Yes, it did. And unfortunately, as being a selectman for the town, you have to do what is right for the town. And from the bottom of my heart, I think that's what I'm doing. So I just want to thank you gentlemen for coming to help us out with it.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about the outcome and the findings, but
Well,
Well, it is what it is, right?
yeah, yeah. You all set?
Okay?
yeah.
Those chairs are awful.
No, my back, I'm waiting
Okay.
for surgery.
Oh,
All right.
and we can get in contact
Okay.
with the...
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Good luck.
Stay off the golf course.
Good luck.
I'll join you.
I didn't recognize you out there, Captain.
So
Sorry.
Take a break now.
Yeah,
for
I didn't
7?
recognize you, sorry.
Okay.
Heather, we have a planning board scheduled at 7.
Yes, not till 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Take days.
So we can take
Yeah.
a recess until then.
Till
Oh, we're
7
not
o'clock.
going to talk about it
Heather,
on Monday.
Heather,
All
will
right.
be here?
Correct.
All right. Dennis, you're gonna be here at 7?
What time is it now?
6. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
All right, I'll make a motion, we take a recess.
Make a motion, we take a recess.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
thank you.
Thank you all.
I'm asking about moving one of those tables down there to sit on.
There are a couple of tables up in your speech. This is a new beach.
Yeah, not really.
Charlie can finish the rest of his questions when we're done, okay?
What's that?
Okay.
All right, we're all set?
Yep.
All right.
This is,
All
yep.
set? Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us who you are. Yeah.
I'm the Bike and Ped Transportation Planner from CMRPC in Worcester.
Dan.
Please excuse I'm battling a cold, so it may be a little hard to hear. I'm here tonight about Complete Streets. The town is looking into getting involved in a program that MassDOT has rolled out over the last month or so. And we, as the RPA for the region, are here to help the town work through the different steps of the program. So for people that aren't familiar with Complete Streets, it's just the idea of making streets accessible and usable for everyone. So if you're on foot, on a bike, in a car, riding transit, it's using the space to include everyone, not just automobiles, as streets have been focused on in the past. So the program, it's a 2-year program right now. It's about $12.5 million. It provides technical assistance and incentives for towns to adopt Complete Streets policies. That's the first step of the program. It encourages towns to have a strategic approach to look at a network for the whole town, not just one single area, to facilitate better travel. So say you drove to the center of town and then people wanted to walk around, or kids needed to walk to school, they'd have multiple options to do that, not just getting in their parents' car and being dropped off. There's three tiers to the program. Tier 1 is policy development, which is where we're at now. Tier 2 is a prioritization plan, where you kind of go through the town and develop projects and rank them based on a number of factors. And Tier 3, there is funding available to construct a project in the town in these first couple of years. So to start, Tier 1, there's two main factors in that. One is a town official has to attend a Complete Streets 101 training that was held through Bay State Roads. The town's all set with that. And the second part of that is to pass a policy, which is kind of why we're here tonight. A draft has been worked up. That would be submitted to MassDOT through an online portal that they created. And as long as you score an 80 and above, you get a rubber stamp to proceed to Tier 2. And then Tier 2 is the meat of the program, really. You can receive up to $50,000 for technical assistance. You can hire the RPA or a consultant. And that's where you come out and you go through all the town's ideas for different roads and areas that you'd like to see have a Complete Streets overlay done. And I would stress that it can't be just for a one-off project. There needs to be, the minimum for the plan has to be at least 15 projects to be passed. So if you think about connecting the town center to various amenities like schools or senior centers or clusters of housing, that type of thing, networking those roadways to get there, sidewalks, bike lanes, timeline, schedule estimate, that type of thing, backed up with data that we have or consultants could gather based on crashes, where sidewalks are, where you have gaps in your sidewalk network, where schools are, if you want to build sidewalks to connect the school, so on and so forth. And there's three ways to get into Tier 2. Part 2A is you have a policy that's scored above an 80 and you want to submit a prioritization plan that you already created for review. Not many people are in that position. 2B is have an eligible policy. And request up to $50,000 to develop a prioritization plan. And 2C is if you don't have a policy yet, but you can submit a letter through the town committing to adopting a policy and wanting to go forward the prioritization plan as well. Tier 3, as I mentioned earlier, is up to, once you've passed Tier 1, Tier 2, you can select a project from your plan that you've developed, and MassDOT will provide up to $400,000 in what seems to be a Chapter 90 type process to construct one of the projects from your list.
How much money is available?
$400,000 per town. It's 12.5 for the whole program over the first 2 years, and I think it will probably continue after that. And then just a little bit more, 1 out of 5 policies across the U.S. has been in smaller rural towns, so it's not just a big city or suburban type thing. There's 10 steps to a successful policy. They really break down into 4 general categories. There's the pre-policy work that kind of sets the town's vision. Then there's the commitment to incorporate all users and modes. As I mentioned, bikes, peds, cars, transit, freight. And then supporting best practices. You kind of cull together different design guides and things that the state has put out to make sure that we can come up with flexible designs that suit the community, and then next steps, implementation steps, and kind of checks and balances to move forward. And the idea is to incorporate it into all projects, so if you're doing some road rehab, minor or major repairs, normal operations work outside of, pothole filling and street sweeping, and then you have the prioritization plan, which helps you line up with major projects and larger improvements that the town would be looking to do. And important for different towns have different characters, so you want to have your exceptions laid out, so there's a way that the town isn't taking on more than it can handle. You don't have to do every single road in town. If it makes sense to have a wide shoulder on one road for people to walk and ride their bikes on, that's fine. It doesn't have to look like the typical street where there's sidewalks on both sides, there's bike lanes, there's this, that, and the other thing. It has context sensitivity, it's key. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the network is also a key part of it. There's stressing it can't be for just a one-off project. So say you wanted to do one road in the middle of the town, that's all you were looking for, that's not gonna fly with the program.
Okay.
Now that sidewalk and bike path, can that be the same? Like if you made a bike path, I saw on there, taking the white line, like the bottom right picture there.
Mhm.
Is that also a walking path or just bike? Because how's that work?
Well, I think if it's wide enough, as long as people can get around each other and it meets the design standards, it's pretty flexible. So you
Okay.
could use that as a walking path and not have to put in a sidewalk there. I think if you signed it too, meaning, there will be pedestrians here, expect pedestrians here,
Yep.
that would be okay.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, and then, well, that's a little general, but that's, the printout that we do have is the timeline for the different tiers. So it's a rolling program, started last month, and it's gonna go through May 2017 for the important tiers, so tier 1, tier 2. If you were looking to enter tier 3, there's a earlier deadline for that. You really need to have the first 2 completed and be almost ready to go to construction by the end of the summer. I don't see a lot of towns being at that
Right.
point this year at all. I think these first 2 years are a great opportunity for as many towns across the state to get a policy adopted and get their prioritization plans moving forward. And that's about all I have. If anyone has any questions or comments?
Boy, they could use it in this town. There's a lot of stuff. Yeah.
You said that you were looking for, when you were creating a plan, I think you said 15, so that's 15 streets you would be looking for on that plan?
It could be
Is that what you were saying?
15 separate projects, so say you had
15
a long corridor and there was different segments,
Yeah,
I think that would be okay. But you'd need some kind of variation. It couldn't be just, we have 15 different projects along this one road.
Yeah, so you could do some in the center, some in south, some in,
Berry Plains.
yeah, very plains.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have a question. Now, does it have to be for roadways and sidewalks, or could it just be roads that we've already redone, that we didn't have the money to do sidewalks or
Yep.
stuff like that? Or
Yep.
can it be just
You
little
can add
sidewalk or-
sidewalks, fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
If you need to bring your ramps up to ADA compliance, that's eligible.
Okay.
There's a wide variety of projects that you can do. Pretty flexible.
So what would be our next step, then, to adopt this policy?
We worked through the policy, and then I don't know how it works in the town, but you would bring it before the appropriate board, vote on it,
Right.
and then submit it once it's signed to the MassDOT portal. The town can register, and then they'll grade it within hopefully a couple weeks and let you know your score.
Didn't you
I
already
thought-
start? Yeah.
Yeah, everyone should have a draft
Yeah.
copy of a proposed policy. The way I envisioned it was the planning board and the selectmen and the other departments involved would comment on it. We'd make any revisions necessary, and then we would hold a public hearing for any further comments from the residents.
Good.
Is this information up on a website someplace?
MassDOT has a portal that has some information available, but more is available once the town registers. So you can pull things off and send them out.
I was sort of, meant for starters, this outline
Yeah,
Yeah.
that you've gone over here.
yeah, if you Google MassDOT
Revisit.
Complete Streets funding program,
Okay.
it'll bring the website up.
Probably just like a broad overview of the program itself, Charlie. Probably just a broad overview of the
Yeah,
program
since,
itself.
we don't have copies of it in front of us.
Right, exactly, yeah.
I did register for the portal and downloaded the design guidelines that really walked you through
Each step.
step. And that's what the draft policy is based on. 'Cause it's all a scoring system and how you meet each of that criteria. That's how you score. So it was-
They've got a pretty detailed PDF on there that walks you through.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably downloadable.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to get this to planning and rec and?
We
Oh,
already
that's
have
why,
it.
Okay,
yep,
all right.
it was sent to planning, it was sent to Jason.
Okay.
I don't know, Dan, if you've met the DPW superintendent?
Oh, yeah.
Jason.
That's me.
And, Charlie Miller.
Yeah, Charlie Miller, Rick.
Nice to meet you.
And the rest of it, I think you
I've
have
met
met the
some-
planning board?
Yeah, Dennis
Okay.
and Doug.
Alright, but,
And
everyone
Phil.
should have a draft,
Mhm.
copy of that policy, so I hoped that we could go over that tonight to move it along. Is there any comments on it?
I wonder if we can really generate 15 projects.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
You think so?
I can
Yeah.
think
Very
of a
easy.
dozen right off the top of my head.
yeah.
Very easy, I think.
You know, something just going out to the high school and another
Well, I
one going to
can
Ruggles
see
Lane. and-
Lane,
Having a
the
bike lane
Grandview
or
Terrace.
Yeah,
bike lane
Put
or
a
a
something
sidewalk
down
out
for
to the high
Grandview.
school
Yeah.
from here.
Down in High Plains, sidewalks go up to each end of the park.
yeah.
Now they don't, they stop on both ends.
Yeah,
There'd be access to a playground area.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot, there's a lot.
Some kind of pathway to go on Southbury Road. We got quite a few people who walk or ride bikes in Southbury part of town up to the
Yeah.
shopping plaza. And
And everything today needs to be done via, making sure there's enough of a bike path, you know, for everyone to use, you know, when they're using a street, so it makes it very clear for people who take bikes or are walking,
Mhm.
even if there's not a specific sidewalk, so that they're a lot, they can use it.
So who's gonna come up with the projects?
we all will.
Yeah, we all will. You, me, Dennis, yeah, Dennis will have some.
I think Jason have.
I can come up with 15.
Yeah.
Does the town have any parcels of land that might lend themselves to kind of a network? Like, for instance, doesn't the town own some property down on the, what's the Prince River, the branch of the Prince River down the hill here? There's trails through there, I don't know
Well,
whether they might lend themselves to
Felton
walking.
Field backs up to it, but I think that is a different, this
Maybe
is,
two
well, this is streets and sidewalks.
rustic
Yeah,
for this, yeah.
yeah, not just a
It's not
walking
street.
path through the woods. yeah.
It could be possible bike path, bike lanes to areas that lead to trails.
Yeah,
Alright.
Especially bike paths, I would think regional connectivity to other towns, to the sidewalks more of a local thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, bike tourism, people coming on the weekend, stopping at shops.
Barry is more and more and more.
It's a bike trail,
Oh, yeah,
right, bike
yeah,
path.
it's amazing.
Exactly.
All
People who
roads
come up
lead to
122,
there. Yep, 62, they
yeah.
come out that way to Petersham, out towards, where? Amazing the amount of bike traffic going through the center of this town. Isn't there something that you guys put the T-shirt for? That's a bicycle thing. isn't it?
Berkshire's, Boston.
Yeah, they got a thing that was designed a T-shirt they're stopping in Barry. Was it a charity thing?
No, it's a,
Thought it was.
well, it's a non-profit, I believe, but, it's a bike tour that goes from Berkshire's to Boston.
Seven Hills Wheelman, I think, is a club
Yeah,
out of
they're-
Worcester that, quite, they go by our house. on
All the time.
All the time.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
From now on, they'll be going, yeah. But I would imagine there'd be a lot of fairly costly projects. You just connect Barry and South Barry.
Exactly.
Right.
If you
Yeah.
want pedestrian walkways or bike paths, right? I mean,
Yeah,
what are they, 3 miles apart? I don't know. What's the
Well, he can come out 120.
Correct.
And that, could any of the cost of acquiring easements, could that be paid for through this program, or how would that work with easements if we needed to
I
get
don't
some?
know, I know they won't cover design, it's only construction. I can check about easements. I think for the funding level, 400,000, it's more, say you have a road that has really wide travel lanes and no marked shoulder,
Mhm.
or you could shrink the travel lane down to 10, 11 feet and get that 4 or 5 feet on the side,
yeah.
then you're good to go from that standpoint.
Because one of the things always has been brought up for a long time is some kind of path, which was brought up tonight to the high school
Yeah.
from the center of town.
in the post
Right.
office,
We ran into issues
incidentally.
before because when you go out the road, the telephone poles will be on one side, fire hydrants on another, so, you know, to try to get a path on one side would be it'd be kind of difficult. We get up by the Stetson home, if you're on the west side, there's a wall there and stumps there. So I don't know if we could somehow, like you said, maybe we could shrink the lanes a little and extend
Put a
one
button.
side, I don't
Yeah.
know.
That would be ideal on that road
Yeah.
because of the school.
Yep, there's a lot of high school students and parents and stuff that use that road, and it's really not very safe. You know, it's kind of, there's some blind corners on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right by Cook's Canyon.
If you had a
In
separate
the pound.
pathway, you know, it'd probably, I think it'd be a good project to take. It'd be expensive, wouldn't it, Jason?
Yeah, it could be broken into a few projects, you know, so that would be 3, because it is such a long span.
Mm.
You know, do a section at a time.
What's that, about a mile and a half to the school?
To the high school? Yeah, it's probably at least,
Two
it's over a
miles.
mile.
It's a mile
Over a mile,
from
sure.
from my house,
It's a mile to where?
from my house to the post office.
Just 1 mile?
Yeah,
So probably
yeah,
closer to 2.
Yeah.
You know, 15 years ago, the 7th grade civics class, because I remember Erin Stevens ran it, she had a group of kids, and they even presented it, and they got a national award for it. And what they were trying to do is create not a sidewalk, a sideway, which is exactly what you're talking about, all the way to the school. And, you know, she had worked with some of the town officials on that, but it did require some easement taking, you know, like in straightening out the area where the pound is, you know, the old pound right by Cook's Canyon, and
Yeah.
doing all of that.
Right.
And at one point, you'd be going up one side of the street, and then you'd be going up the other side.
Yeah.
But still, it was made to be 5 feet wide, so that you could have both walkers and bikes traveling in that area, but it was really the roadway, you know, with that marked area. So, yeah, and the 7th grade class won an award with that. That was at least 15 years ago.
Do you want to go over this?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, why don't you
Any
read the,
comments?
read the discussion, Heather?
Okay. If everyone has read this,
Yeah, I didn't look at it lately, but I looked at it when you first gave it.
okay.
I read mine when sitting on my kitchen table. I
You
took
got-
this and left.
You got your notes.
Does anyone want copies right now?
Is that
an extra one?
Just take
How many?
a classy item.
I'll make copies right now.
Yeah.
Oh, you make-
Yep.
Yep.
Do you need a copy?
I can, yeah, or I can look on the Jason.
How many do we
1,
need?
2, 3, 4.
Yep.
You put this together?
Yes. And,
Did you have a drive for it?
yes.
Okay, that's what.
All right. And,
All right.
some of the drafts that Eric had passed on, Eric Smith.
Oh, yes, yeah, okay,
Passed on from other towns that scored well.
great.
And as well as the guidelines are very helpful as far
Good.
as what kind of language, because there's specific language that they're looking for
Okay,
in the policy, like shall.
I saw that, I circled some of that.
Mhm.
Right.
And how
This is
the
safe.
modes
Yep.
of transportation
Is that one of
is
them,
applicable to all groups.
Danny?
Yep. That's how everything's done today. Yeah, that point system.
Okay. This is the same.
Yeah.
This is the guidance. Here.
We worked
Go
with
by each
the
section.
town of
and
Spencer
how many
to
points
develop
you
their
can
policy,
earn,
and they scored an 85, so they're ready to move
We're
forward.
good. Excellent. Yeah,
They didn't get any feedback yet,
Well-
but
still,
they're good to go.
better than getting 45.
What town's gone with it so far?
Spencer?
Spencer, right.
has passed the policy.
Steve Tyler, right,
Yeah.
Steve. Okay,
We're in the process of finalizing the scope to hopefully get funded to do the phase 2.
Great.
with them. And we're working with Mendon as well.
oh, okay,
And then in terms of towns that are just looking for the policy, phase
Yeah.
1, right now I have over 10.
great,
So it's,
super.
Can't read this, but there's
I have.
27 towns here that
Great.
All right.
We want to go by section,
Yep,
Are there any comments on the vision and purpose? Dan, your best guidance, like what they're looking for in each section as we're going along.
Sure. Vision and purpose is kind of standard. It covers what I said probably 10 times during the presentation to make sure you get all road users and everyone's accounted for.
Could we?
The last sentence really sums it up.
Yeah.
Pedestrians, bicyclists, motorcycles, emergency vehicles, freight, and commercial vehicles.
Right.
So that they're all included and given their space on a road.
Skateboarders have been left out. I don't know if that's conspicuous or not, but we've had lots of requests over the years, you know, for skateboard parks, and of course you see kids skateboarding, generally weaving in and out of traffic and stuff like that. It's just not great.
I don't know if it's me or, I've seen a decline.
Lately, yeah.
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
that's couple of years.
That's,
Kind of was a fad.
that comes and goes,
Yeah.
you know?
It's small.
No comments?
No.
We'll move on
Yeah.
to core commitment. First, section A was just to make a definition,
Mm-hmm.
and B covered the scope. Like if that complete streets would apply to every phase of a project. You know, if we had a potential sidewalk going in, it would go through planning, and all the design principles, any right-of-way acquisitions.
That's what we were kind of what we were talking about.
And you use the word shall too,
Yeah.
you know, so that,
Yeah.
Really, in this, under this section, they're really looking for policy that includes 2 or more modes of transportation, like walking, bicycling. That's the highest level of points you can get for that.
Yep.
The projects and phases that you're identifying, that it applies to municipal road repairs, upgrades, expansion projects on public right-of-ways. And that you have clear, accountable exceptions, and those are listed under C. It identifies concretely what are the exceptions. Like, is this going to be too cost prohibitive for the town to implement?
Instead of doing one costly one, you could do 5,
Right.
get more done with the 5 than.
Right.
Yep.
Or like,
some roads just, you cannot, say you, ideally you want 5 feet for a bicycle path, but the road is just not conducive to that. So you might have to, you know,
Just
go,
make a walking path.
right, or you have to maybe only do 4 feet on each side.
Yeah.
Or only do one side
Mhm.
in
Or
order
you
to
could-
have it.
Yeah.
Or
just flat out
eliminate
say
it.
You can't do it.
It just can't,
Yeah.
there are some areas, you know, I know when they're doing on the TIP program, that just, there are some areas that just, you cannot make that work.
Right.
Just of the way the land is, if there's a bridge or, you know, whatever it is that's there.
are there any comments on section 2?
So what do they, I guess I don't quite understand how private, you mean publicly funded?
What line are you on?
Looks like this, well, first start of the second sentence on page 2, where it says private developments and village, street design, components or corresponding street layout.
Private developments in the village.
Private developments,
Yeah.
how does, I guess that's got me a little,
I think that's
I think
if you have
if
a,
new developments going in, they're gonna make them meet our standards. So they
yeah.
have to put sidewalks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
oh, okay,
say a subdivision's going along the main road,
okay.
Mhm.
that main road has to comply.
All right.
is actually.
What if it's a private street? If it's never, if it's,
I don't think it has to touch that street, but if the street intersects with the public road, if there's frontage there, you would have to comply.
I think there's, Bucky Anderson, I think, up on town, the backside of town, Farm Hill was looking to put a cul-de-sac or something in that land
Yeah.
up there, so that would apply to that, right? If he's gonna put sidewalks in, he'd have to adhere to the,
If, I think only, I think that's a good question for the planning board.
it's just.
But what I was gonna say was, I think, with the road that it's kept coming off of, doesn't have sidewalks or anything like that, he might be exempt, but the planning board, I think, would have more ammunition in that fight, Dennis. I think.
Because when you do a subdivision, don't you generally, a town is going to take it over and plow it?
Yes, then it has to
Then
meet
it
certain
needs to meet
standards.
those standards
Right.
that are the town standards.
Correct,
And these would become the town standards.
right. Good point.
Thank you.
You don't have to review subdivision regulations for this,
Okay.
but it's not a bad idea to kind of
Tie it in.
go through and see if they align.
I
Yeah.
think that's part of, when we get further along, that's part of implementation,
Mhm.
that we review. Any other comments or amendments?
I guess the other issue is that the next sentence is state-owned roadways will comply. I presume the State Department of Transportation is all on board with this, so that by definition, that
Yeah,
they get, okay, they're encompassed with this.
well, it's a state program, so that,
Right.
I
One
mean,
would
that
think-
doesn't always mean anything.
One would think so, maybe.
But, yeah, that doesn't always mean anything, but you would hope so.
Okay.
Yeah, see, Mass 90 and the TIP program too, that's part of the state and federal government.
Yeah.
They are all having to meet these standards. So if you want money,
Yeah,
Yeah.
do it,
you have to adhere to it.
yeah. Well,
We'll move on to best practices. This context sensitivity basically takes into account, we want to keep the character of our town
yeah.
the same, and this policy does not change that. So it's making sure we keep, this policy keeps in check with that. And design standards, those are just the latest design standards that Mass DOT recognizes.
Yeah.
Also, our town documents, zoning code, and subdivision regulations are included.
I just have another question too, about the funding. Now, will this apply to everything, even our chapter 90 projects, or would it just be the funding that we use out of the 400,000 that we apply? And how do we do that as far as the projects lay out? Do we have to separate the projects, like the roadway would be chapter 90 and the sidewalks and the pathways would be the complete streets funding? Or do we fund one project with the complete streets and we do all that, and how does that get broken up?
I think the way it's written is you at least have to look for chapter 90 projects to see if you can incorporate some kind of design so they all kind of flow into the same review process through this.
Right, so once we do the project,
Mhm.
decide we're gonna do South Street, we're gonna do from the center to the post office. Do we have to split that project up, like we pave our roadways, and that's gonna be chapter 90 funds, and then the sidewalks and everything that we put in, does that have to be, everything kept separate, and that's different funding to come out of the, if we apply for it and get approval for the 400,000 for the project, or is the whole project under that 400,000, do you know what I'm?
I think you could pay, I think you could do the road with your funds that you're getting anyway, and then you can add on
The sidewalks.
with the program funding.
So even if the bike lane is the edge of the roadway, then that's covered by your chapter 90.
Right. Yeah, but they pay to.
What about the
stripe.
traffic market? Yeah, what about the market?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
the roadway would be chapter 90.
Yeah, good.
Which one to do? Just-
No, I'm just curious, like, if the whole project's gonna have to be broken up, like the sidewalks and stuff is gonna be separate
Yeah.
funding, so it's separate paperwork than filing for our chapter 90 project, or does it all go under chapter 90, but it's just a complete street? Or does it all go on, the whole street goes underneath the?
I think the
street?
way they're trying to do this is just all through chapter 90,
Everything's in
I
chapter
think.
90. So we'll get an extra 400,000 on our chapter 90?
as long as you're using it for
Sidewalks.
specifically, yeah.
So that would be on
Sidewalk,
top of
lights.
what we usually get?
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question. So it'll all be through the chapter 90 funding, just we'll get that additional amount?
Yeah, from what I understand, I mean, nobody's there yet,
Okay.
but that's the way it seems to be. A lot easier than going through a TIP process.
Yeah.
Right,
Oh, yeah,
Design.
yeah.
which is years.
Right.
Yeah. No, that,
It'd be months
just
versus.
curious how,
Yeah.
how we're gonna have, if we're gonna have to be broken up or it's just
I
extra
don't
money.
think so, no, yeah.
This section also covers performance measures, and would just be that how we evaluate how we're doing going forward. Just use the selectmen would meet with the DPW superintendent each year to see how the complete streets principles are being met to the most practical extent. Any questions on section 3? Implementation. This is where it sets out how we're gonna make this work. Putting a committee together of the relevant stakeholders that would ensure we're implementing the policy where necessary, and any proposed revisions that need to be made to our existing documents, zoning, subdivision, code, bylaws, procedures, rules and regulations. If there's any professional development or training that we could encourage our staff to go to, or the members of that committee, and that we would all work, all the departments would work together to promote this moving forward.
You could probably do webinars too, that the group could come in, sit at this table, and they could do a webinar, you know, and join in with that, because that works too.
And that we'd seek out any possible sources of funding and grants to implement the policy. That's about it in a nutshell.
What do you think of that, Dan?
I think you should be good to go.
Yeah, good. Excellent.
Good job.
Dan, I had a question. So what is the free money to the town? Up to $150,000 for technical assistance?
50,000.
50.
50,000?
Yep.
Okay, and then construction is up to $400,000? And the design fees are not covered by the program. What would you see as a range of design fees that might be involved?
I honestly couldn't tell you. We don't really deal with that from our end. So I think it would really depend on the scope of the project. If you did it within the town, if it was a sidewalk project, it would probably be minimal compared to 400,000. And then, I don't know, if you hire consultants that do.
We have
engineering
on-call
work.
engineers that we use. So we could use
Probably something like 5 to 10% of the construction cost maybe. Pretty low.
Jason, how many feet of sidewalk was that you just had Leonard give you that price on?
600.
600 feet, and it was what, between $500 and $700
$7,500.
to design that?
I'm almost curious if we could get like a standard sidewalk spec for the town, just keep that in place so we have a specification for width that we could just apply to our roadway, so we wouldn't have to necessarily go out for an engineered plan for every single sidewalk we do.
Right.
And I don't know if that's something we could do.
Would
So
make
this
sense.
is our engineer puts together our specs for our sidewalks, and that's what we go with for all the
Right,
projects.
they gotta be so wide, so high off the road that so much material, every so often you gotta have a ramp out.
Yeah.
And that must all be state standard anyways,
I would think.
with the ADA compliance and the whole
There's
thing,
certain
right?
things that
probably
are-
the
Yeah.
design
Right.
standards.
It's gotta be in the design, yeah.
It would talk about width and you have poles that are in it, you need to provide them,
Yeah.
or pump out,
Mhm.
go arounds, obstacles.
A little tough to move the poles.
Yeah.
Coat them with that rubber. Bounce off.
Dan, how is this training, the Complete Streets 101 and 202, how are they facilitating?
Bay State Roads is putting it on, so we hosted one at CMRPC last month. There was one in Shrewsbury earlier in the year, and there's one in April in Sturbridge, I believe,
That's listed up on the website.
on Bay State Roads, yeah. But you
I went to
attended
one in
already.
February at CMRPC,
Yeah,
so
the
the
town's all
town is
set.
covered.
Oh,
And
okay.
then the second level is for DPW, but they haven't scheduled anything yet.
Right.
But you'll get emails from me on that. That'll go over all the different design aspects.
So you're looking for the Board of Selectmen to adopt this policy tonight, Heather?
No, I would wait to your public hearing.
Yep.
I would, planning board should, I think planning board should vote as well prior to the public hearing. After tonight, it doesn't matter, but then the selectmen can hold the public hearing and then you would vote to
How
adopt
soon
it.
are you gonna do the public? Because we're meeting tomorrow and there's another one pretty soon. So we could,
Beginning of May,
I don't
right?
know if we can add it to the agenda
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Okay. Not the following meeting?
Yeah, we got one tomorrow and then there's another.
So you're not gonna have one on the 31st, because you had talked about that too, Dennis.
Yeah. We have one tomorrow, next one, yeah, they do still have the 31st listed.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one be the 5th of April,
Okay.
Okay.
so we could do it.
If you did it the 5th, then the selectmen could do it at their second meeting in April, hold the public hearing.
So
Oh,
Yeah,
we
have
could,
it
all
on our
right.
5th meeting.
yeah.
Okay.
So we're, Dan, has Spencer heard about their funding for technical assistance?
Not yet. I just had to change the scope to match what MassDOT has on their website.
Okay.
So we'll submit that hopefully by the end of the week. And then it's about an 8-week process from start to finish to hopefully go through all the different hoops to get it approved. And then we can start work on June 1st.
Okay.
And who is actually looking at the qualifications and making the final decision on how many points someone should get?
I don't know if MassDOT has a panel, but
That's what I was
goes-
wondering.
Goes into the website and
Okay,
I'm assuming a couple people look at it and
okay.
get back to you.
From the state, it's on the state level in
Yeah.
Boston. That's what
Yeah.
you're saying. That's all I want to know.
And I believe if you don't score high enough, they should give you feedback right away to
Oh,
tell you how you can improve the policy
okay.
and resubmit.
Okay.
I think it was from the training, Eileen Gunn. Was
Yeah,
she
it's
part of the
Eileen Gunn
panel?
and Lou Rubito, who's the state's
Yes.
complete streets engineer.
Oh, okay,
They were part of that. Was this not a large panel?
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, great. Great, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Dan.
much.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Yep.
Great. So planning board's going to vote on April 5th, and then we're going to hold our public hearing at the end of April.
Right.
You know, and then we'll do a vote. And then and at what point will we talk about the different streets and what they'll be done?
That won't be until we go through our design principles, right? We'll
Okay.
get the technical assistance.
Okay.
Yeah, phase 2,
All right.
you can hire me
Yep,
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes or a consultant.
okay.
And that is, right now, Spencer will be the first one, so we'll try to iron everything out, going through that process. With contract as it is now is June 1st, and hopefully wrapping everything up by August 15th,
Okay.
including working with the town, going on doing some field data collection, holding a public meeting to get resident feedback, that type of thing. And then MassDOT has a spreadsheet template where you can list the projects, and you don't have to pick number one on the list.
Right.
They just have to be on there.
Mhm.
And then we'll produce a narrative document to go along with it. So it's not just a spreadsheet that has no story to go with it.
Great, super.
Excellent. Thank you very
We have a
much.
direction.
Yep,
Super.
thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Then we'd all,
Appreciate it.
eventually we'll all come back together, go over that phase as well. And in the public hearing, if you want to attend the public hearing.
All right, very good. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
Get out.
Yeah, sure.